We all have our favorite mechs. If I'm rolling up 6K battle value, there is a good chance that I'm going to be playing a Warhammer. This is one of my favorite machines, one of my favorite inner sphere mechs. It's just got character. It's got personality. It's got that hammer to hit other mechs with. But there are a couple of things that I think personally I would change. And this type of Tactica kind of falls between two places. Certainly we have the stock mechs. This is how they rolled off the production line and their primary configuration. Then for various reasons, you have variants. Maybe there were some production issues that were corrected in the narrative, or upgrades to better technology, or even playing part of a campaign. You've got to mix and match pieces over time. But then we have this middle ground of changes personally that you would make. And we see this in the narrative, notable mech warriors that are known for piloting a specific mech. Over time, they've changed some things. They've tweaked some things to make it a little bit more responsive or a little bit more focused. I sometimes do this with the Warhammer. And that's what I wanted to explore as a framework in this Battletech Tactica, but also asking the direct question, given the Warhammer's character and some of the vulnerabilities, what changes would you make? So let's kind of look at the three areas. Weapons profile. A lot of great weapons. You've got some long-range weapons, you've got medium-range weapons, but then you really have a lot of dedicated and focused short-range weapons. On top of this, you have weapons that could engage a variety of targets. Okay speed, okay armor, a little bit light on the legs, and that could potentially be a problem at shorter ranges. But the primary focus of the Warhammer, the primary challenge, of course, is heat. It generates a massive amount of heat, and it can't clear it fast enough. Now, that's not a criticism of the Warhammer per se. There are a lot of early tech inner sphere mechs that run very, very hot. You really can't fire both their primary weapons for a long amount of time without overheating, or you're going to push that heat. But this duality of the Warhammer has some great weapons. I want to utilize them as much as I can. So within that framework, I'm going to keep the PPCs. This isn't kind of a Marauder hatchet job where we'll drop the PPCs down to large lasers. I have two PPCs. I've got that 10 points of damage. I've got that range. We want to keep pushing that out. That's the primary focus of the Warhammer. Now as we close, where I'm still in PPC range, but now I might want to switch to something else, a little bit medium to short range, we've got those medium lasers. Or more likely, I can run the PPCs hot at a long range, meaning you're behind cover, we're going back and forth, I'm running the calculations, you're not going to close the hex maps in 2 or 3 turns. I can push that heat. But if I'm advancing in my Marauder, or you're advancing towards me, the first opening shot or two are going to be those PPCs. But then I'm going to switch to the medium lasers. Yes, less damage, but I can fire more consistently and manage that heat. So we've got the medium lasers. Then we jump to that short-range missile pack. And then we jump to the shorter-ranged weapons of small lasers and machine guns. The challenge here is the small lasers, the machine guns, and the short-range missile pack. I would analyze that as a Warhammer mech warrior. I would analyze that and say, I don't want to be at super close range with this machine, with a Warhammer stock, because the armor is a little light on the legs, and it's a little bit light because of all the weapons that it mounts. It's still solid for a mech, but it is a heavy mech. If I'm at close range, normally at close range, the idea is I can utilize my medium lasers and short-range weapons, but so can you. The only time I really want to engage at close range is if I have all the toys for close range and you don't. I have to get really, really close for those small lasers, for those machine guns, and for that point-blank short-range missile shot. That means you're going to be on top of me. We're also looking at physical attacks. We're also looking possibly at kicks. So I kind of want to stay away. I would drop that short-range missile pack. It's only one. Usually we have a short-range missile pack for crit fishing, meaning I'm punching holes in you with those PPCs and medium lasers. And then with the short-range missile, when I fire it on the spread, if I can just get a missile right in there and go to internals. But by dropping that, I'm freeing up a lot of space. I'm freeing up a lot of ammo. I am not worried about an ammo hit exploding on there. I want to drop that. The small lasers, I want to drop those too, because to be really, really close with those small lasers, I'd rather beef up with some medium lasers, or I'd rather look at some armor. So we're looking at this idea of the PPCs, medium lasers. Now the machine guns, well, Fritz, drop the machine guns. Actually, no. I want to keep those machine guns because the Warhammer itself is very, very vulnerable to infantry swarms. Now, if you're not playing combined arms, that's okay. If you're playing Total Warfare combined arms, infantry swarms, I want to have an answer to them. The stock Warhammer is vulnerable to being overwhelmed by massive amounts of infantry. And the only thing that can really save it is the fact that you have those machine guns to light me up. I want to keep that. The moment that that drops, if I'm running multiple Karnovs and I've got jump infantry, or you're going to try and walk that Warhammer through some city fight, city tech, I'm going to have infantry swarming anywhere. And that's just a free pass. I'm going to hit you with so much stuff, you have nothing to respond with. But as soon as you add those machine guns, that's what I would keep. And what's interesting is, on a side note, just for a framework, I've pushed up to the Battletech playlist here, exploring some different infantry tactics. The value of the infantry swarm is light mechs just want to avoid it because 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 stands of infantry, I'm going to smoke your whatever, Jenner, Wasp, Locust. You just avoid it, and you can run away. There's been some times in City Fight, City Tech, where I've had my Locust swarm, and my opponent has put infantry down a very, very long road with buildings on either side. And, you know, I'm running the numbers in my head, but I'm like, there's no way I'm going to run through this and not escape with missing weapons or immobilizations or legs blown off. I'm not going to do it. So light mechs, done. Medium mechs, you can kind of avoid infantry, but I can move quick enough. I can fight back. Heavy mechs are extremely vulnerable to infantry, but not in the way that you think. Not in the way of, I'm going to destroy the mech. Heavy mechs are vulnerable because, let's say you're on the way in as a lance. You've got your Warhammer, you've got your Banshee, you've got, you're moving forward, your T-Bolt, and you don't have dedicated anti-infantry systems for it. If you move through my infantry swarm, I'm going to just light you up. I'm going to cause a lot of damage in a lot of locations. You're going to absorb it, but overall, the armor on your mech is going to be lowered on the arms, on the legs, based on how infantry hit. So it's not like you took 1 or 2 hits on the left torso and you know you're weak there. So now maybe you'll torso twist, or you'll try to keep that left torso out of the way, or you're like, okay, I'm weak in the left torso, but I've really got nothing mission critical in there, component critical. The infantry swarms will hit you and bring all of your armor down based on how that spreads. So from that perspective, that's how they're vulnerable to heavy mechs. Yes, you'll wade through my infantry swarm, you'll ignore it, and you'll take some damage. But now when you arrive on the other side, you are a third overall weaker. You've been significantly weakened with your armor. So now when you hit my heavy frontliners, my Banshee, my other mechs, I've got a significant advantage of you. And there's a tactica there on a side note of delivering massive amounts of infantry storm to the midfield, right? If we're playing on a hex map, deliver that to the midfield or dig into places and let your opponent cross you and let them take that damage. It's literally like walking through a minefield. Let them take that damage and then you counterattack while they're fresh. So if I dropped all of those short-range weapons from my Warhammer, going back to our original question of being a dedicated, well-known mech warrior, what would your machine look like? I drop all those things. I'm vulnerable to infantry. I want to keep those machine guns. So with that question, do I add more armor? Do I add some more weapon systems? I'd like to get some more medium lasers on there, just so at long range, I can hit you with those PPCs. Then when we get to shorter medium range, I switch over to the lasers, and then I go to the machine guns if needed for the infantry. Well, Fritz, that kind of sounds like a Marauder. Well, yes, it is a Marauder, and I also regularly play the Marauder also. But if we're talking about the looks like I have to roll in a Warhammer, those are some of the tweaks that I would make if I'm not playing a stock. So turning it over to my fellow well-known mech warriors, my fellow Warhammer pilots, You've got your machine. This is the machine that you are going to play in the next 20 Battletech games. How would you tweak that? How would you change it to bring out that player personality in the Warhammer for you?